So HTC's embargo on the Vive Pro has officially dropped, which means that I am now able to share all of its dirty little secrets with you. I am Tribal Instincts, and the dramatic entrance aside, I am going to share all the details that I can think of on the Vive Pro with you at this point. However, sadly, there's not a whole lot of dirty little secrets. It's more just a few tiny little secrets. Before we get into this though, I do need to make a couple clarifications from the previous video. One, there actually is a USB port on the headset. I had said that there wasn't. That's just because I couldn't find it because the stupid thing is hidden. Here's a picture of it. It is underneath this port right here. You actually have to take off the foam padding and then pull this thing out, and then it's stuck underneath there. Pictures up there again. Anyway, not exactly easily accessible, so I don't feel completely horrid for not seeing it the first time, but it is there. In testing, I did verify that I was able to get some pass-through for it. I plugged in a USB memory card reader, and guess what? It shows up on my computer. So it is a USB-C that you can use for all of your nice little attachments. I still have not found an audio port on this thing. That is no longer me saying that it doesn't exist. However, I just can't find it. It's definitely not in that port here, so I don't know. I don't think it exists, but I could be wrong. Another thing is I mentioned that this cable was slightly longer than the previous 3-in-1 cable. That's not true. I don't know how I derped up whenever I was measuring it. However, it is the exact same size as the previous 3-in-1 cable. Not sure what I did. No excuses at all. Apart from those 2 points, everything else in the previous video on the first impressions actually still holds up, which it's pretty cool. So there are a few points that I kind of want to clarify or expand on, and some things that I just completely missed that I'm going to talk about here. However, if you haven't already seen it, go watch the Vive first impressions. It's still completely relevant, so I'm not going to just go and just repeat the same thing again. So let's talk about the actual visual, the biggest, most important change of the Vive Pro. So it turns out that finding, or that capturing good images of what you're actually seeing in the lenses is harder than I thought it would. So I tried. However, I just want to give the disclaimer before I put up any of these that in all cases, what I see in the headset is better than what is actually showed here. And this is not just for the Vive Pro. I'm just showing this for the comparison's sake so that you can see that it is a dramatic improvement, but don't take any of the images as like the final product, okay? If you don't have a Vive yet, if you've never put on a Vive or a Rift, because they're about the same on the visuals there, completely disregard this, okay? Because everything looks better on both the Vive and the Vive Pro. All right, so Exhibit A, I wanted to do something that showed as clearly and as like one-for-one as possible on the raw ability to see text. So I just slammed together a quick Unity application that has like a series of text that gets farther and farther away from you. The text font size stays the same, it's just moving farther away. So, and I'll put a link in the description below if you want to download that. That way you can see what I'm talking about in terms of like if you actually have the headset on, it's better than what I show here. So again, it's just a comparison. All right, so here is the Vive 1 and here is the Vive Pro. So you can see the differences between them just already right out of the bat. Like it's pretty significant once you get into the smaller text. You just can't read it as much. Now, just to give you sort of a frame of reference, whenever I actually have the headsets on, I'm able to fairly legibly read out to around line 8 on the Vive 1 and then around line 14 on the Vive Pro. That number is distance, by the way, or at least it's a rounded version of distance. So it is 14 meters away from my player that I'm able to actually read it on the Vive Pro versus somewhere around 8 where I lose the ability to really understand what those words are without, kind of knowing what it was ahead of time. All right, so that just gives me sort of like a baseline. That was great. It gave me kind of like a one-for-one. In both cases, I try to get the lenses, like my camera, about this far away from the lens itself. So like the distortion you see on the outside, the blurring, like again, that's not as bad as it is if you actually have the headset on in either case, okay? And that's even more obvious and more important to call out whenever I'm looking at Elite Dangerous, which is the most requested thing for me to try out. And it's a good thing. So I've tried Elite Dangerous before, however, I could never really get into it just because it took so much time for me to learn it and just things happen so fast. I've always wanted to come back into it, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So going into it now, like jumping into it with the Vive Pro, you see this resolution, all right? And I did try to get like some motion shots that we can kind of get a better idea of more accurately what you're gonna see in the game. And then I jumped into the Vive 1, and remember what I said in the last video about like kind of having like a stink that you didn't quite know was there? Like I remember going into Elite Dangerous before and thinking like, yeah, that text is not very legible. But jumping from the Vive Pro to the Vive 1, like directly back to back, that really brings it home. Like that's a pretty significant difference. So Elite Dangerous is impacted by more than just the readability of text, which is a pretty big deal. However, it's also impacted by the weight, or not actually, it's not the weight, it's the weight distribution of the headset. I think I said previously that the Vive Pro probably weighed less. Like measuring them now, and I don't have a scale that will actually show me that accurately. However, like putting them both in my hand, I actually don't know if it weighs any less. They just did a much better job of distributing the weight to where it feels so much better. But anyway, no matter how they did it, like sitting in Elite Dangerous for more than just a few minutes is so much nicer, okay? So from that standpoint, like these are the two biggest selling points of the Vive Pro, obviously, is the lenses, or sorry, not the lenses, but the increased resolution, and then also the comfort factor. That is huge for Elite Dangerous, for anything that you're gonna be in it for a long time, including virtual desktop. This was the biggest point for me, bar none, that I was actually able to go in and feel comfortable editing some code in virtual desktop. The text was legible. I was able to actually do everything that I needed to, almost, until I hit play. So as soon as you start virtual desktop, right, it starts a new application, it takes over, it's like an application that runs on the headset. But as soon as you hit play in like Unity to run a virtual reality application, guess what? It kicks virtual desktop off. So while I was able to code it, as soon as I hit play, virtual desktop shut down, and even after I closed my testing application, virtual desktop didn't come back up. So virtual desktop is not yet currently a place where you can develop VR applications without ever taking your headset off. I hope that they have an improvement for that. That would be fantastic. However, if you are developing something that is not VR related, then I can say that you can do it. Is there a strong reason to do it just yet? Probably not, because virtual desktop is even only still using your same monitors. I think there's another application that allows you to break things out and like be a little bit more creative with where you put your windows. That is something that I still desperately need to try out, and that may make it a whole lot more worth it. But as of right now, like developing in virtual reality, until I'm able to the point where I can develop a virtual reality game and just hit play and then stop it and then just keep going, like that's gonna be huge. Until we get to that point though, like mouse and keyboard is still probably just more easily accessible without having a blindfold on. But we're close! All right, so we've talked about the lenses, we've talked about the comfort, and honestly, those two are the biggest selling points. Nothing else really on the headset as of the time of this recording is a massive sell. Like this is an improvement on the deluxe audio strap, and the visual's great. However, then we get into the headphones, the mic, these two cameras, and I think that's primarily and then the cable. All right, so let's talk about those pieces. All right, probably one of my biggest annoyances so far, the microphone. There's no difference between the audio quality of the Vive 1 and this one as far as I can tell. It may be a little bit cleaner sound. However, the popping, the breathing, it is still heavily prevalent to where you breathe out and then just like you can't hear a thing, okay? I really, really wish that they had put this mic somewhere else so that you didn't have that. I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't need to be right there. So that is my biggest annoyance with this. They should have done something about that, because things like, well, anything that's active, like Hollow Point, if you're, well, not Hollow Point because that's not multiplayer, but any multiplayer game that has you breathing heavy, like you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just nothing but uncomfortable noises the whole time. All right, then the speakers, and I touched on this before, there really is no difference between this and the Deluxe Audio Straps headphones, okay? I really wish that they had really pushed the boundaries on this one. Again, I don't care too much about having like really, really crisp audio for games. However, it's still, like, it's just, for the advertising that it is kind of a letdown that it is the same audio that I've been used to before. I do appreciate the headphones. I do think they're very comfortable. However, I don't like that they're like basically on par with my Turtle Beaches. It seems like for how much this thing is worth, this should have a little bit more emphasis. All right, and lastly, and this may not be that big of a deal for most people, I have a stupidly large room. However, I know a lot of other people extend their cables out as well. The fact that this is a proprietary cable now really irks me. I don't like that at all. I wish that they had kept the same cable. It didn't really bother me before. However, now I am limited to the length of this particular cable, and that really is annoying. You can still extend from your computer to the link box. However, from the link box to this, you are restricted to whatever length they provide. What's interesting is that probably for the last year, I haven't even used the link box. Previously, I was able to run from the headset to a set of extension cables and then directly into my computer. My previous link box had kind of gotten a little bit weird and it was causing bugs. So I found out that I could just plug directly into the computer itself and everything was fine. So I was able to extend out. I had plenty of cable length for this whole room, and I didn't have the link box underneath my feet. That was great. This new cable, I don't understand. Do I find that this is worth it? I still can't answer that stupid question. $800, that's dumb, okay? I really don't like how much they're charging for this. I love the fact that it has dropped down the Vive 1's price. I love that. I wish that this had been a few $100s cheaper, especially with the wireless that's gonna be coming out. Like, that's gonna add up a lot. My stance on is it worth it is still pretty much the same. For me, it is worth it. Yes, I got this for free, but I was completely prepared to buy it, even if it wasn't going to be for free, okay? So take that for whatever it's worth. Like, this would be worth it to me if I were to be paying for it. I put on my headset more than most other people, okay? It just makes sense for me to have something that's gonna be a lot more comfortable. And then the extra visuals, it makes a big difference in my total comfort and my enjoyment of those games. Like, after a week or so, like playing it, you're not like walking around like, oh, wow, like I was for the very first time whenever I put on the headset, but the same thing goes for the Vive 1. You get used to it and that becomes like sort of your expectation. It's whenever you go back to the Vive 1 that you realize there's a huge difference. So for me personally, yes, this is worth it. Is it worth it for you? I don't know. How many hours do you put into it? Like for me, I'm about to go and probably, and I really hate this, but my phone's dying. I'm about to have to go drop $800 for like the new Galaxy S9. And honestly, I get more enjoyment out of this. My phone, I use it to call my wife, I use it to check my email, I use it to respond to you guys, and I play some games when I'm on the toilet. Like, that's not worth $800, but I'm gonna do it anyway because the alternative is not all that great for me. So yeah, $800, it's a lot of money. It's stupid. I don't like their price. Is it worth it for me? Yeah, it's still worth it. So I'm one of the suckers that's gonna buy into it. Do I recommend that you get it? Only if you find that VR is worth the $800 worth of investment. That's the question I still can't answer, I'm sorry. The only thing I can say is that if you're playing maybe an hour or two a week, you're probably gonna get just as much like total enjoyment out of the Vive 1 than you are for the Vive Pro. If you're having a game where you just really desperately can't read that text and it's a game that you want to, like for Elite Dangerous players, this is probably a must-have. If you're just playing your typical slashers or Gorn or whatever it is, I mean, probably not. All right, guys, I hope that helps. I know I'm kind of like rambling on this one. However, there's not too much that I can add to it. And like the concept of, is it worth it? It is such a huge thing for so many people. So many people are getting enraged about this, and I get it. However, respect the hardware for what it is, whether or not you respect the price, which I don't think there's any like human that I've talked to, including myself, that respects that price. However, some of us are just suckers enough for VR to where it makes it worth it. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button below. If you didn't, hit the downvote button and tell me what I can do to make these videos better. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.